Yeah, so we're looking at the Canon R5 Mark II, which is a phenomenal. Like, this is what I kind of was hoping. Like, if the R1 is a new camera, like, I feel like it really feels more like an R3 upgrade because, like, we're seeing what an upgrade looks like. And the R5 Mark I to the R5 Mark II actually feels like a substantial upgrade.
Mm-hmm.
So when we look at this, one of the number one problems that Canon ran into with the R5 Mark I was overheating. Nobody shied away from it. Everybody attacked them head on. And what I love here is that Canon did not back down to that. And in fact, they got ahead of the game with a new accessory, which is this battery grip. And this battery grip is genius in a lot of different ways because I'll be honest with you. One, as someone who shot with the R5 for a while, I immediately put a battery grip on it. When I went to the R5C, I put a battery grip on it because you just want that extended battery life. And especially with the R5C, it was just awful battery.
Mm-hmm.
But there were all these little like accessories that started popping up. That were like little fans that you could like stick onto the back of the camera. And Canon said, I'll see you one further. We'll just build it into the battery grip, which to me, I think is an absolute genius move because now you're saying the camera has vents on the bottom, which is exactly what needed to happen. They needed to make the camera, better for heat. But now if you are still not getting the performance that you want, you can go and buy a Canon approved, Canon created accessory that should solve any overheating issues you have. Now, the big test will be, how does this actually work in real world environments, in hot environments? If you take the battery grip, you throw it on, like if you're here in Houston where we can have a heat advisory and it can feel like 110 literally like any other day, this is where something like this is absolutely going to come in handy because I feel like there are two things that like for me, that if a camera has these two problems, I'm almost always going to have to walk away from the camera. The first is battery life. If the battery life is trash on a camera, it's super hard for me to make it work. Now, if I can figure out a solution, V-mount, put a Titan base battery underneath the bottom of it, something like that, and it's still ergonomic and I feel good using it, I can maybe make bad battery life work. But overheating is a instant no-go. If your camera overheats and it decides to stop working,
sorry, Sony.
Yeah, you're kind of done. Like it ruins the entire experience. And Canon, even in the past, to jump back on Canon, when they put the little timer up there and you see it go from 29 minutes and 59 seconds down to like 15, and then it goes to 10, and then it goes to 5, and the camera's telling you, hey, I'm about to overheat. Hey, I'm about to overheat. Creatively, I'm done.
Yeah.
Because like now all I'm thinking is, oh, I'm rushed because my camera's about to overheat. Can I get this shot? Do I have enough time? And once that starts to kick in, I feel like I can't even get anything done anymore. So the fact that Canon is coming at it with this vent, I think is absolutely amazing. That's the one element for me that was the most exciting. But I know there's still a ton of specs I got upgraded too, so we'll hop into those.
For sure. And the interesting part is they did address both of your concerns, but that also, I think, causes a little bit of griping because that battery grip's $400, and the battery thing that you talked about, they're coming out with new batteries for the R5.
Yeah.
So the P edition, now you can still use your old, normal Canon batteries, but if you want to access some of those higher video 8K modes, I think you need that P version for the batteries.
Yeah, I appreciate them keeping the batteries the same size and the backwards compatibility. I think that's definitely going to be helpful, especially if you're coming over from the R5 already or any Canon, even DSLRs for a while. Like you have a long lineage of batteries that you can use. But I do see like where the benefit of like, oh, buy our higher priced premium battery.
Yeah.
So that way you can unlock all these other video features inside your camera. For video professionals, that's going to obviously be a must.
Yeah.
But I think if you are just like a photographer who's picking up this camera, then you can save some money.
Yeah. And if you're just going to be honest with yourself, if you're not going to be shooting 8K 60, don't go and buy the battery.
Right.
And this might be a hot take. This is just my personal opinion. We will spend $1,000+ on lenses. We'll spend $4,000 on a camera. Like at some point in time, if we want cameras to continue to push the edge, we got to be okay with an $80 battery.
Yeah.
We got to like be okay with buying 5 or 6 of them.
Now, I'm okay with an $80 battery if it lasts me at least an hour. But if this thing lasts like 30 minutes, then I'm going to have a problem.
So now I haven't seen battery life.
Yeah.
Haven't seen it at all. Like I can't even, like, as I'm jogging through my brain. So Chad, if you've heard what the battery life is, let me know. But I will say, I do think that them taking off the cinema menu from the R5C and just having kind of a little bit, they changed the menu just a little bit for the R5. It's not exactly like the R5 Mark I. I think we're going to have significantly better battery life, because when you put on that R5C, when you switch it into video mode, oh my gosh, you just saw the battery drop by 20%.
Oh, it was worse than that. I remember I took my R5C to NAB, not this past one, but the previous year. And I was like, guys, you guys got to help me figure this thing out. And like one of the things I noticed was I would be in the cinema mode. It would flat out die. And then I would switch it over to photography, and it would tell me I still had 2 notches.
Yeah.
Which should be, anywhere between 30 to 40% battery life still, which is just like blew me away that the cinema menus were that like power consuming that it couldn't even run just the screen on.
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely. I think they've made the right moves here, but I think we need to hop into some of these specs because I think these are going to be pretty big.
All right. So, 45 megapixel full frame stacked CMOS sensor, which I've heard that the readout speeds of the sensor are close to the R3, very similar. And so, Brandon, when you were shooting, obviously you're used to global shutter, but when you're shooting the R3, did you notice rolling shutter when it came to photography or videography?
Not that much.
Yeah.
I mean, the stack sensor definitely helps with some of that. It's very rare that I'm whipping my R3 around, but I will say.
What about baseball?
I was gonna say, yeah. When it comes to, you do start to see a little bit of bowing in the bat, which is really just tough. And like you just can't really get around it. So until we start getting global shutter sensors inside of photography cameras, I think it's just gonna be something we'd have to deal with. But the stacked is kind of like the next best thing.
Yeah. So then we're also looking at that same dual pixel intelligent autofocus, which that's in the R1, which big ups to you, Canon, for not literally doing a lesser version, but doing the same. That's awesome. That's incredible. Up to 30 frames, pre-continuous shooting mode. So I think it's like a half a second, I want to say, or maybe like a full second that you're able to shoot before you press the shutter. It's capturing it. And what I've heard is it's not going to the SD card, which will essentially just ruin your SD cards over time. I think it's buffering in the RAM.
Yeah. So all of these cameras that have that have pre-recording, they have some form of internal storage inside, which I think is really interesting because I want that to just be more. Like it'd be so nice if these cameras would be like, hey, you've got 128 gigs of internal storage just in case you forget a memory card.
Just in case.
I can't tell you how many times I've shown up somewhere and was like, crap. Send an assistant off to the closest Walgreens or CVS. Go buy me whatever memory cards you can get your hands on. So to have 128 gigs built in.
And something like a MacBook Pro where the built-in storage is the fastest storage.
Yes.
So that you're able to do 8K 60 with no worries.
Yeah, I think that's like our next big elevation in cameras is going to be like built-in storage. Now I know there's a limitation, blah, blah, blah. You may have problems with the drive, whatever, but like just something.
Yeah, don't get rid of the card slots.
Right, keep the card slots, but just give me like even my DJI, my what is it, the 3, the Pro, like the Mavic, it has 1 terabyte of internal storage.
How many times did you show up on a job on a drone job and didn't have a card.
Before this drone,
Yes.
it felt like almost every other time.
Every
Because
time.
you take the card out, you offload it, you go to do the next job, and it's like the only card you forget about is the drone card. But back to this, I think that like the it tells us that we have like that little bit of buffer with the actual photography, but you also get up to 5 seconds of pre-record on video,
Yes.
which is one of my favorite features on the Red.
Mhm.
Again, I shoot a lot of sports. And when you're shooting live events, you're shooting live sports, you're shooting live whatever, pre-record is such a lifesaver because now you don't have to just be rolling nonstop and burning through footage. You can like set up your shot, wait for something interesting to happen, and if it doesn't happen, you're fine. Just keep it moving.
Yeah.
But if it does, you press record and you get the original 5 seconds before. Such a huge feature on this camera. And the fact that it's like that they have them on this, and I think it's also on the R1, huge, 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 huge.
For sure. Yeah, it has that upgraded EVF. It is not, it's better than the R5 one. It is not better than the R1, but steps up in its size and its dots, 5.76 million dot EVF. Looks incredible. And the card slots, one CF Express and then one SD card. And then crazy enough, which this is a big step up, is the Mark I was 8K 30. This is 8K 60 raw, and then the different flavors of the raw, like S raw and that sort of deal. So 4K 120. So the interesting part to me, and we've kind of alluded this a little bit, the R5 Mark II, not just from a price standpoint, but also from a feature standpoint, seems like the real flagship.
Okay, so I can see why the R5 Mark II feels like the flagship because its numbers are bigger.
Mm-hmm.
But the price tag is cheaper. So, so there you go.